And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the spaceship stream. You could be watching from anywhere around the country or the world, and I really appreciate every single one of you. Coming to you from the spaceship studios from a galaxy far, far away. And I appreciate all very much, and we will be talking about a couple of different things and reviewing the Diddy trial and a couple of other trials that I was keeping up with today. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing now is switching over to the other screen so people can see me. And welcome everybody. Now we're going to go here. Well, something like that. Like this. Go down here. Alright. Alright. Hello everybody, it is me, Alien Spaceship. Hope everybody's been having a good day and a good week so far. So, we had a couple of... There was a trial. The Preppy trial was a half day. And the other one, there was... In the Missing Boyfriend trial, there was a verdict. And it was good to see it was a guilty verdict. Because he obviously did it, and there was some of the loved ones of the person that was missing in the chat, and we were, supporting them. It's always nice to see, the different people that had something to do with the trial in the chat with us. Right. And with Diddy, it's coming to an end, and we'll see about the defenses, what the defense will do tomorrow, because they're doing the closing arguments, and we'll see if he is found not guilty or guilty. Whatever happens, it's in the jury's hands. And I will say that he has a very good legal team, and he has Brian Steele on his side, which, I feel that he should lead the... I'm not defending Diddy, but I'm saying, just hypothetically, for his defense, Brian Steele should be the lead of it, because he did very good with YSL, with Young Thug. Yeah, so we will certainly... And with the situation with the war over in the Middle East, that seems to be stabilized at the moment. So that is pretty much all for that situation. But now we'll be going back to focusing on the trial stuff. And maybe I'll talk about some UFOs. But what I'm going to be doing, as we always do in the beginning, we'll be playing the game for a little bit while I talk about these things. And then we'll be getting into additional articles and stuff as time goes on. It is good to allow some people that may not be here just yet to have a chance to come through before it starts, where they might miss something. Although, it's okay, people can see the replay of it. Alright, so now we're launching the game. Okay, here we go. Alright, so now the game is launching. It'll launch at some point. Yeah, I think that with life in general, it is a learning experience. And it's good to see trials and these different things to really see, like, the good and evil in the world. Because we can see that pretty much every day with a couple of different stuff. And what we could do now is, like, learn about what is right, what is wrong, because sometimes things may not always be as black and white as it may seem. Alright, so now it looks like we're on the volcano island last time I was here. One of the friends are online. It's pretty cool. Okay. And it looks like a cactus. That's kind of out of place. I don't think they had cactuses in this part of the world, but that's interesting. Maybe they did. I'm ignorant about where cactuses are in the world, so I have nothing to say about it. It looks like there's some hay over there. It looks like a medieval village, but it's not. They're little pirate shacks. Well, they're not really pirate shacks. Well, it is a pirate shack because I say it's more friendly to pirates, but it's not necessarily a pirate island. But it's not too much against it. Port Royal, ironically, that's where, although the game, it's like a bunch of pirates hanging around, but we go to Port Royal, but it's not a pirate port. So we could tell this is when the ship gets repaired. You don't have like a station, like a big station. There's like somebody that's like what they would call a plug, or a person that's selling, certain things they shouldn't be selling probably, or depending on who would think that, but on what their opinions on that. But like, say somebody's selling some like drugs on the street or something, that's how they put in the game. They have like a person, and you go and have them repair your ship, but it's like kind of really done in a shady way. Hello, Regina. It's great to see you. We have just started a couple of minutes ago, so they will be coming in at some point, and if they don't, they must have been doing something else. But and also kind of starting later than usual. Usually I start a little bit earlier, but this is how we did it. So yeah. And Regina, it's great to see you. I hope that you are doing well, and thank you for being here. So I've been keeping up, with the Middle East, the news in the Middle East, and it looks like the situation is stabilized for right now. But what I'm going to, so now I'm shifting back to focusing solely on the trial stuff. For those that are interested in the trial stuff. Do you ever talk about crop circles? Regina, crop circles are my speciality. We could get right into that, because we do that on the channel. So crop circles, I've done a video about crop circles too, by the way. So crop circles are these different things that are seen by people that allegedly extraterrestrial craft or them themselves have created. And so how it works is, there was one time, a couple of centuries ago. Oh, hello, Anna. Okay, thank you, Anna, for letting me know what's going on, and it's great to see you. Yeah, so, and I'll talk about that right now, Regina. So, there is this storm that happened. It kind of like the storm for War of the Worlds. The reason why I say that, and maybe those that haven't seen that movie, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but I have to mention it. But so, kind of a spoiler alert, but it came out 20 years ago, but spoiler alert, sort of. There is a storm that happens in that movie before some other things occur. All right. So a storm happened a couple of centuries ago, and they saw all these strange signs in their crops. And with the crops, these crop circles, they were thinking they were not from something from Earth or done by nature. So this is where a theory that some sort of extraterrestrial beings were doing it. And then there's this other theory that they were created by, people, or the storm, like say the wind manipulated the crops a certain way, and then there you go. But there was some strange storm that happened, and they started seeing them. So people started seeing these strange back in the centuries and centuries ago. So there is one that was allegedly done by the devil, where there is this giant circle in a field, and they think that the devil had something to do with it. And about that story specifically, you get to read you that right now. Pulling that up and going to dock here real quick. All right, drop anchor. All right, so the crop circle, the double crop circle, the mowing devil. All right, so the crop circle that was seen, it was from 1678. The mowing devil is a strange news out of Hertfordshire, or Hertfordshire, is the title of an English woodcut pamphlet published in 1678. All the way back then, they were seeing crop circles, and probably before that. It narrates a tale that Satan mowing a field in Hertfordshire, and presents itself as reporting the news. It has been cited as early as reported crop circles. And I'm going to show you all the scene right here, right now. So this is what we are looking at, the devil, and it's not showing. So that is interesting. So I have to go and, but anyway, close this out and reopen it, because it just simply, I closed the window before and it thinks, it doesn't know exactly what we're talking about here. So we're going to go back here. Well, oh, unfortunately, it is not cooperating. So I'll show you all in a moment when I get this thing settled. Okay. So Anna says, that's what I think, E.T. No human or machinery can do that overnight. Looks like a craft landed to me. Yes, I agree. The pamphlet tells a strange news story of an anonymous farmer in Hertfordshire who refuses to pay a price demanded by a farm worker to mow his field of oats, swore that he would rather the devil mow his lawn instead. Well, it's not a lawn, but a field. According to the pamphlet, that night his field appeared to be in flame. The next morning, the field was found to be perfectly mowed, that no mortal man was able to do it like that. This pamphlet and accompanying illustration are often cited by crop circle researchers as among the first recorded case of crop circles in history. And crop circle researcher Jim Schnabel does not consider it to be historical precedent because it describes the stalks as being cut, while modern crop circles involve wheat, barley, or less commonly other plants being bent. So a lot of the crop circles that are discovered are bent. And we will see throughout history that that is how the crop circles work. They are usually bent and not put down the way that they're saying. So we have right here is the right here you have the crop circle pamphlet that they were talking about. So right there you'd see it. This is the pamphlet, and that is what it allegedly looked like. You see, it kind of looks like a spacecraft or something landed there, and they didn't know what it was. So back then, in this time period, the technology and all to do it that quickly and that late is very hard to fathom. So it's likely it was done, in my opinion, by some sort of extraterrestrial being, and I do think that they can be connected with not all angels, but not all aliens, but some aliens are connected with fallen entities. So that is a possibility, right? That they could be connected with that. But anyway, so I think it was some sort of UFO that did it. Transcription. The mowing devil or strange news out of Hertfordshire, being a true relation of a farmer who bargaining with a poor mower about the cutting down 3.5 acres of oats upon the mowers, asking too much farmer frower that the devil frowled mow it rather than he. And lo, it fell out that very night the crop of oats fewed as it had been all of flame, but next morning appeared fo neatly mowed by the devil or foam infernal spirit, that no mortal man was able to do like that. Alpho and the fade oats lie now in the field, and owner has not power fetch them away. Anna said those circles too precise, something with the bottom shaped like the circles landed down the circle imprints. Right, exactly, I agree. and it's too precise. And about crop circles in general, like some history about it, is the crop circle, crop formation, or corn circle is a pattern created by flattening a crop, usually a cereal. The term was first coined in the early 1980s. Crop circles have been described as all falling with the range of sort of things done in hoaxes or Tanneritis. Now, some are hoaxes and some are real. So I do believe there are real ones. And some people made them as a prank, and some people really did, you know, not do it, and it was from UFOs. But as I said, maybe they're all from UFOs, and it's just a cover up. Although the obscure natural causes or alien origins of crop circles are suggested by fringe theorists, there is no scientific evidence for such explanations, and all crop circles are consistent with human causation. In 1991, two hoaxers, Doug Bower and Dave Corley, took credit for having created over 200 crop circles throughout England. A widely reported interview of the number of reported crop circles increased substantially after interviews with them. So these were created by humans, but there are other ones that were created by aliens too. But as I said, maybe they're all created by aliens and are using this as a cover up. Exactly, Anna. I agree. It's probably a cover up. The United Kingdom reported circles are not distributed randomly across the landscape. You got to remember how precise you would have to be to put a crop circle down like that without any kind of other technology, without making any kind of mistake. I would say that would be very difficult to do. It would probably take a long time. Oh, Regina says, the reason I asked was because we had a visible meteor today in Georgia and South Carolina. Oh, interesting. When I Googled it, it took me a rabbit hole of crop circles. Fascinating. Oh, that's very cool. I love watching meteors. I sometimes see shooting stars, and y'all are saying y'all had a meteor. Oh, yeah, that'll certainly take you down the rabbit hole. That's very fascinating. And this is just a background of the history of crop circles. And I'm glad that you all take a keen interest in this. And the circles are not, okay. Dense population and cultural heritage monuments. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Doug and Bower Dave Corley took credit for having created over 200 crop circles allegedly in England. In widely reported interviews, the number of reports of crop circles increased substantially after interviews with them. The United Kingdom reported circles are not distributed randomly across the landscape, but appear near roads, areas of medium to dense population, and cultural heritage monuments such as Stonehenge are near roads, areas of medium dense population, and cultural heritage monuments such as Stonehenge, Avebury, and usually appear overnight. Nearly half of all crop circles are found in the United Kingdom in 2003 were located within a 15-kilometer radius of Avebury stone circles. People take credit for other crimes. The government doesn't want speculation, so they say someone took credit. Yes, Anna, that is absolutely true. For instance, with the aliens themselves that were seen as a hoax are now being considered more seriously and talked about by Congress, and are people that have encountered extraterrestrials and have talked about it. There's another problem with the other beings where you'll have orbs and stuff like that, and there's a point where they can't hide the lie anymore, so they go tell what the truth is, and they talk about the truth in hints in movies and stuff. You know, I remember I was watching something about a person that allegedly encountered the Greys and some aliens that was a secret government agent that got deleted, an engineer of some kind. He was talking about how the aliens want to try to do something nefarious to the planet at some point, and they are not nice. Some of them, the ones he encountered, didn't smell good at all, and it was not really a nice entity that he was dealing with, and it had something. It waved its. This is all alleged. It waved its hand a certain way, and it zapped him with some sort of lightning bolt of some kind. So they have some sort of advanced technology. Another thing is Planet 10, Planet X, which is around a lot of conspiracy theories that there is this other planet outside of Neptune that will orbit our planet at some point every couple of thousand years, and they're saying that wasn't true. But now the astronomers and NASA are saying that there is likely something there, and I saw recently they've confirmed that there's something there, but it wasn't really seen in the news much. But they confirmed that there's something out there. So there you go. So those are some conspiracy theories that they don't want people to know about. Say they have a technology that we don't have, and it may cause people to be frightened, and they don't want to cause a panic. But I think people should know the truth. The government wants public to in the dark about ETs because covering up for decades. Yes, they've been covering it up for decades, and it's a big scandal, and it's coming out over time, especially with the internet. In contrast to crop circles or crop formations, archaeological remains can cause crop marks in fields in the shapes of circles and squares, but these do not appear overnight and are always in the same places every year. I will, Anna, thank you. Before the 20th century, which I just told you all about, in 1678, news pamphlet The Mowing Devil describes crop whose stalks were cut rather than bent. In 1686, an English naturalist, Robert Plot, reported on rings or arcs of mushrooms, which are called fairy rings, in the Natural History of Stanfordshire, proposing airflows from the sky as a cause. In 1991, meteorologist Terence Meaden linked this report with modern crop circles, a claim that has been compared with these made by Eric von Daniken. An 1880 letter to the editor of Nature by amateur scientist John Rand Caproon describes how several circles flattened crops in a field were formed under suspicious circumstances and possibly caused by cyclonic wind action, stating as viewed from a distance of circular spots, they all presented much of the same character, viz., a few standing stalks as a center, some prostate stalks with their heads arranged pretty evenly in direction, forming circle round at the center, and outside there a circular wall of stalks which had not suffered. In the 20th century, in 1932, archaeologist E.C. Kerwin observed 4 dark rings in a field at Saughton Down near Chichester. Oh, hello, Abby. Just popping in and say goodnight. Have a great stream, boss. Good night, everyone. Oh, good night to you, Abby. Thank you for liking the stream and telling us good night. All right. Take care. But couldn't examine only one. A circle in which barley was lodged or beaten down while the interior area was very slightly mounded up. And in the 14 times David Wood reported in 1940 he made a crop circles near Gloucestershire using ropes, but as I said, we don't really know that for certain if they really did it or it's a cover-up. In 1963, Patrick Moore described a crater in a potato field in Wiltshire that he considered was probably caused by an unknown meteoric body. In a nearby wheat fields, there were several circular and elliptical areas where the wheat had been flattened. There was evidence of spiral flattening. He thought they could be caused by air currents from the impact, since they led towards the crater. Astronomer Hugh Ernest Butler observed similar craters and said they were likely caused by lightning strikes. Scared. I was telling you all, like, some apocalyptic storm happens and then these things appear. During the 1960s, there were many reports of UFO sightings and circular formations in swamp reeds and sugarcane fields in Tully, Queensland, Australia, and in Canada. For example, on 8 August 1967, 3 circles were found in a field in Duhamel, Alberta, Canada. Department of National Defense investigators concluded that it was artificial but couldn't say who made them or how. See, they're saying they're artificial, but they can't say who made them or how. The most famous case in 1966, Tully saucer nest, when a farmer said he witnessed a saucer-shaped craft rise 9 or 12 meters, 30 to 40 feet, from a swamp, then fly away. On investigating, he found nearly circular area, 10 meters, 32 feet long by 9 meters, 25 feet wide. So you see, you have this situation where people are seeing an aircraft, an alien spacecraft, as it rises up, they will see these type of crop circle formations. So it's possible that the crop circles could be made by an alien craft landing and taking off. So that is a possibility why the mowing devil happened, why these different things occurred, was because of the extraterrestrial craft lifting off. Right? And wide, and where the grass was flattened in clockwise curves, and water level within the circle, and reeds had been uprooted from the mud. The local police officer, the Royal Australian Air Force, and University of Queensland concluded that it was most probably caused by natural causes like a down-draught willy-willy, dust devil, or a water spout. In 1973, G.J. Oettinger's director of Public Relations, Department of Defense Air Office, wrote to a journalist that the saucer was probably debris lifted by a willy-willy, which what a willy-willy is a dust devil, but it may have not. It probably was something extraterrestrial. After 1960s, there was a surge of UFOologists in Wiltshire. There were rumors of saucer nests appearing in the area, but they were never photographed. And there are other pre-1970s reports of circular formations, especially in Australia and Canada. But they were always simple circles which could have been caused by whirlwinds. British pranksters Doug Brower and Dave Chorley reported that they started creating crop circles in British cornfields in 1978, inspired by Tully's saucer nest case. The first film depicted a geometric crop circle, in this case created by a super intelligent ant, and was a 1974 science fiction film Phase 4. The film has been cited as a possible inspiration or influence on pranksters who started the phenomenon, allegedly. The majority of reports of crop circles have appeared and spread since the late 70s, as many circles began appearing throughout English countryside. This phenomenon became widely known in the late 1980s after the media started to report crop circles in Hampshire and Wiltshire. After Brower and Chorley gave interviews in 1991 about how they made the crop circles, allegedly. Doesn't mean they really did it, but they claim to have done it. The circles started appearing all over the world. By 2001, approximately 10,000 crop circles have been reported internationally, from locations such as former Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, Japan, US, and Canada. And remember, from the 1600s they were being seen. Researchers have noted a correlation between crop circles, recent media coverage, and the absence of fencing and anti trespassing legislation. Although farmers expressed the concern and damage caused by these crop circles, crops and local response to the appearance of crop circles was often enthusiastic, with local taking. Right, have pranksters do a demo so we could see how it's done. And I will say that we don't know for sure if the crops are really being done by these people that are claiming they're doing it. But as I said, I do believe that regardless, there are crop circles created by extraterrestrials. And what they do is they were saying that they took boards and they flattened crops and they made shapes out of them. And they used a rope to measure things. As I said, for them to be that precise, I don't know. As I said, I don't quite believe that they did it. No. With locals taking advantage to increase the tourism and visit the scientists. Crop circle researchers and individuals seek spiritual experiences. The market for crop circle interest generated by helicopter tours and walking t-shirts and book sales. Let's see. All right, so exactly, I agree. I agree. So this is, let's see, this is another one of them claiming that humans did some of them, and you all could see what y'all think, and then we'll get into the extraterrestrial and weather explanations. Bower and Chorley in 1991, two self-professed pranksters, Doug Brower and Dave Chorley, made headlines by saying they had started the crop circle phenomenon in 1978 using simple tools consisting of plank of wood and rope, and a baseball cap filled with a loop of wire to help them walk the straight line. To provide their case, they made a circles in front of journalists. A serologist advocated paranormal explanation crop circles. Pat Delgado explained that the circle and declared it authentic before it was revealed that it was a hoax. Now, as I said, to create a crop circle to the extent that we see, the really big ones, or any of them really, I don't think that's from human origin, in my opinion. Inspired by the Australian crop circle accounts from 1966, the Brower and Chorley claimed to be responsible for all circles made prior to 1987. They're claiming 200 circles, 1978 to 1991. I mean, what would be the point in Anna creating 200 circles without any error? Why would they want to create 200 circles? And how would they be able to get away with it without being seen by people? With 1,000 other circles not being made by them. So they're saying that 1,000 other circles weren't made by them. But I don't know if any circles are made by them, in my opinion. Writing in Physics World, Richard and Taylor University of Oregon said that the pictographs they created inspired by a second wave of crop circle artists. Far from fizzling out, crop circles have evolved into international phenomenon with hundreds of sophisticated pictographs now appearing annually around the globe. So let's talk about the... Exactly. Now let's go into the extraterrestrial origins. Alternative explanations in science magazines from 1980s to 1990s. For example, Science Illustrated 1 could read reports suggesting that plants were bent by something that could be microwave radiation rather than broken by physical impact. The magazines also contained serious reports of absence of human influence and measurements of unusual radiation. So, during these crop circles, there's a lot of radiation that was detected. Yes, Anna, I agree. You see, they're saying they got a plank and a string and a baseball cap, and they flatten them all out themselves. And you have these two guys, I don't know how many hours that would take, and they just never got caught. It's like if you have to go and say that, I'm not saying they're not talented or good at making different artwork and stuff, but I'm saying that I don't think that these things were created by humans at all, in my opinion. Unless you had some sort of advanced machines. The magazine also contained a serious report of the absence of human influence and measurements of unusual radiation. Today, this is considered to be pseudoscience, while all the time it was subject of serious research. At the time, it was also more likely that an unknown factor was behind the incidents, not least seen in light by the fact that GPS was not available in the public. So basically, in this situation, the presence of radiation, like tin cans and a string we made telephones as kids. I've done that before. That's pretty cool. I've done it before. Yeah, so just take a string and a can and put it on the crop, and then you go. There you go. And but they're saying with these crop circles, there's a presence of radiation, and they're all over the world, all over the world. Paranormal. Since becoming the focus of widespread media attention in the 1980s, crop circles have been the subject of speculation by various paranormal and ufological and anomalistic investigators, ranging from proposals that they were created by bizarre meteorological phenomena to messages from extraterrestrial beings. There has also been speculation that crop circles have relation to ley lines. Ley lines are straight alignments of drawn between various historic structures, kind of like the pyramids. All right, so this allegedly is a UFO that was allegedly seen that was creating a crop circle. You see how it makes a perfect circle, and we all probably taken like geometry and stuff, and I took it in school, and to make a perfect circle is very tedious without proper instruments. So if two guys are on a field and they're putting wood on crops and stomping on them, it might not create a perfect circle. So a UFO like that, so that looks like an orb and it has Egyptian markings on it. Maybe the crafts operate on radioactive energy that spacecrafts. Yeah, I agree. So that was allegedly what was seen. Right. You see, like that was creating the UFO phenomena with the radiation coming out of it. A sketch of a spacecraft creating a crop circle sent to UK Ministry of Defense. That was sent to the UK Ministry of Defense. So they're taking it very seriously. Some paranormal advocates think that crop circles are caused by ball lightning, that the patterns are so complex that they have to be controlled by some entity. Some proposed entities are Gaia, asking to stop global warming and human pollution. God, supernatural beings, or, for example, Indian devas. The collective minds of humanity through proposed quantum field and extraterrestrial beings. Responding to local beliefs that extraterrestrial beings and UFOs were responsible for crop circles appearing in the Indonesian National Institute of Aeronautics and Space described crop circles as man-made, and researcher professor of astronomy and astrophysics, we have come to agree that they cannot be scientifically proven, but it can't be disproven either. Among others, paranormal enthusiasts and UFOologists and anomalistic investigators have offered hypothetical explanations that have been criticized as pseudoscientific by skeptical groups and scientists, including the Committee of Skeptical Inquiry. No credible evidence of extraterrestrial origin has been presented. A small number of scientists, physicist Eljo Hasselhoff, a late biophysicist William Levengood, have claimed to observe differences between the crops inside the circles and outside them, citing this as evidence that they were not man-made. There you go. Levengood published papers in journals in 1994, 1999, and 1994 he found that certain deformities in grain and side circles were correlated with positions of the grain in the circle. But then again, it's like maybe that's true in some circumstances, but the crop circles that you see from the sky, those have to be created by something from the sky. And they were not man-made. Regina says, could it be that crop circles are drawn by President Biden's auto pen? Yes, Regina. I believe there's truth to that. That crop circles could be drawn by his pen, yeah. And that really must be the culprit behind all of this, that they're using his pen to create some of these crop circles. Scared. Yeah, definitely agree, Regina. In 1996, it does look like the Knights Templar cross. Very good job at catching that. I know a lot about the Knights Templar. And yes, it does look like the Knights Templar cross with the head. Yes. And also it reminded me of Egyptian cross that some of the gods had. But yes, the Knights Templar cross too. Absolutely. And a lot of symbols on them. A lot of the symbols on different alien craft are, that's another thing that are signs that it could be from something else too. Like the symbols on the aircraft itself. In 1996, Joe Nickel objected that the correlation is not causation, raising several objections to Levengood's methods and assumptions, and said until his work is independently replicated by qualified scientists doing double-blind studies and otherwise following stringent scientific protocols, there seems no need to take seriously that many dubious claims that Levengood makes include his similar ones involving plants of alleged cattle mutilation sites. Nickel also criticized that Levengood for using circular logic, stating there is in fact no satisfactory evidence that single genuine vortex-produced crop circles exist. So Levengood's reasoning is circular, although there is no guaranteed genuine formations on which to conduct research. The research supposedly provides genuineness of the formations. Danielle said Hey alien, Anna Regina, just came to say hi and good night. I'm recapping the Preppy murder trial. I'm a day late on that one. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you are doing that. It's a very interesting trial with cringe in it. Um, that's good you're doing that, and thank you for stopping by. All right. Advocates of non-human causes discount on the site evidence of human involvement. Oh, it's okay to interrupt me. That's all good. Advocates of non-human causes discount on site evidence of human involvement as attempts to discredit the phenomena. When Ridley wrote negative articles in newspapers, he was accused of spreading government disinformation and working for the UK military intelligence service MI5. Riley responded that noting that many seriologists make good livings from selling books and providing high-priced personal tours through crop fields, and he claimed that they have vested interest in rejecting what is by far most likely explanation for the crop circles. All right, Anna. I agree he's guilty. Researchers of crop circles have linked modern crop circles to old folkloric tales to support the claim that they are not artificially produced. Crop circles are culture independent. They appear mostly in developed and secularized Western countries where people are receptive to New Age beliefs, including Japan, when they do not appear at all in other zones such as the Muslim countries. Interesting. Now, in Muslim countries, they do have supernatural entities like the jinn, and through the Islamic interpretation, they would interpret the crop circles being created by jinn. And a jinn is like a genie, like from Aladdin. Fungi can cause circular areas of crop to be deleted, possibly the origins of the tail, the fairy rings. Tales also mention balls of light many times, but never in relation to crop circles. But I believe that they're connected. In the 17th century England, English woodcut called the mowing devil depicts the devil with scythe mowing lawns, cutting a circular design in a field of oats. Pamphlet containing the image states that the farmer, disgusted at the wage of demand by his mower for his work, instead he would rather have the devil himself perform the task. And also, Anna says, what about all the charges Jack the driver, who didn't even get out the car, would face without immunity? Is that nuts? It is to me. Oh, Anna, I understand. I do think that that sounds very far out. I agree. Now, maybe they see him as an accomplice to it, but, that's what they decided to do. That's all I could think of. They think it's some sort of an accomplice. Yeah, and I do agree with you, Anna. And as I don't know why it's like that, but I could see what I could dig up to find an explanation of why that is the way it is. Crop circle researcher Jim Schnabel does not consider this to be historical precedent for crop circles because the stalks were cut down, not bent. The circular form indicated that the farmer it had not caused by the devil. I didn't see Jack testify yet. If he did, I am so behind. Jeez. Yeah. Yeah, I think that some of the boys that were testifying were kind of rude, but the other ones were like there's one a few of them that seem all right, and then some of them seem kind of rude. And yeah, because when the witnesses act rude like that, it makes since they're a group of friends, it makes them look bad. Yeah, it's a it's a bit of a perplexing trial. It's kind of confusing with some things that they've done with it, but I think the defendant's very guilty. You know the Anna says let him hold the knife, maybe aiding and abetting. I said that wrong, but like defense was saying, if Jack didn't get deal, he could face 60 years. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. It's that is a that is harsh. That's quite harsh, and hopefully they can try to get that situated. But I think they're trying to use it as a repellent for other young people to not get into fights and stuff. But I do also agree, on the other hand, that that is a lot for that, in my opinion. But that I see what you mean, Anna. I do agree. But they also may want to do a repellent so other young people don't get in fights like that and stabbing people. All right. In 1948, German story Die Zwölf Schwan. The 12 Schwans, a farmer every morning finds a circular ring of flattened grain in his field. After several attempts, his son sees 12 princesses disguised as a swans who take off their disguises and dance in the field. Crop rings produced by fungi may have inspired such tales, since folklore considers that these rings are created by dancing wolves or fairies. And I do believe fairies and wolves and these supernatural creatures are part of the extraterrestrial group. Yeah, Danielle, that's what I was thinking. But I could also I see both sides. I see like the so Anna what they're trying to do it as a repellent, but at the same time it is quite an extreme. Sun was high. Yeah, sun was high. Scared. Anna says Jack's daddy must have gotten primo lawyer. Jack didn't talk to the cops for 6 months, and not until a deal with the pros was made, Jack helped defense case. Ah, okay. Thank you, Anna, for the information. Let's see. Right, exactly, Anna. No, it's all law. The kid's dad got a lawyer immediately. Right, okay. Okay. And Danielle said should be less than 60 years, maybe 10. I can't say. Yeah, I just think they're trying to do it as a repellent. But remember, I think it could be broken down less, but we'll see how it goes. In 2009, the Attorney General for the island state of Tasmania stated that Australian wallabies had been found creating crop circles in fields of opium poppies. which are grown legally for medical use after consuming some of the opiate-laden poppies and running in circles. That's kind of funny. Now, with these poppies, they'll say about how it takes a lot of them to get somebody in, intoxicated, but I don't agree with that. I think they're just saying that because it's like they say you need fields and fields of it, but I don't think it's fields and fields of it. And like, okay, opium poppies. Hi. Yeah, Regina. Yeah. So it looks like the wallabies are getting high too. So with these poppies, they they're legal to grow, but if you grow too much of them, from what I heard, the federales come and they ask you, and they kind of like, yeah. I don't know of any instances of the federales coming, from what I've heard, but there's one time somebody was growing like a strip of poppy flowers. It wasn't really that much, and all the federales came out, and they're saying that you need fields and fields of it. But it's like someone puts like one out, and there's like helicopters, and it's like the Scarface movie. But as I said, with the poppies, they are legal to grow in gardens, but they're kind of a gray area, though. It's kind of a gray area. I've never grown any myself, but technically, though, but I've never grown the opium poppies. But that one is a real, it's in a gray area, okay? It's a gray area. And I think if they find any cuttings on the poppy pod, it's not good if you're caught with the poppy pods being cut like that. So, but with the poppies themselves, they have different types. I've grown the California poppy, and it's the state flower of California. And I've grown I think the winter one. Now the California poppy smells very good, and it's calming. It's not like the opium poppy. They're not connected, but they're related. But they're not connected. But yeah, it smells good. I've never grown that one before, the opium one, but that one's really, really potent. That one. And Anna says Jack's testimony showed it was a fight. 2 against 30 plus jocks may get off on self defense. Oh, hello, Moki. Good to see you. Anna says, I say Jack backfired on the state. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of wars are fought over the opium. Allegedly, in Afghanistan and stuff, they have a lot of opium. And Vietnam had opium. So there's theories that some of those wars were caused because of opium, too. Hello, Moki. We're talking about crop circles and trials at the same time. All right. Weather. It has been suggested that crop circles may be the results of extraordinary meteorological phenomena, ranging from free tornadoes to ball lightning, but there is no evidence of crop circle being created by any of these causes. In 1880, an amateur scientist, John Rand Capron, wrote a letter to the editor of Journal of Nature about some circles and crops, blamed them on recent storms, saying their shape was suggestive of some cyclonic wind action. But I think the cyclonic wind action had to do with the extraterrestrials. And that was the one I was telling you about in the 1880 when they had this storm of cyclonic storm. There's been a couple of new crop circles. Oh, wow. Yeah, because I do think that they're created by the extraterrestrials. And I am going to go to the Diddy stuff also. Okay, so in 1980, the Getting a little bit ahead of myself here. So in 1880, amateur. Yeah, Afghanistan was definitely an opium war. Yeah. Vietnam had opium too. That's why when the East India Company, I'm not completely against the East India Company. I think it was pretty cool, but there are some other things about it that they may have done things that weren't right. But so the East India Company had a war. I could be getting my history mixed up, but there was a war with opium with China. And it was the year of humiliation. It was the era of humiliation for China. And Regina, I've talked about that before. You probably heard me talk about that before. But you saw one that was a happy face. Now, with the opium, it caused humiliation to China, and there was war over it, and now there's a fentanyl war going on from China to the United States, allegedly. And yeah, that is unfortunate. But yes, yes. And there was in Vietnam, there was opium there. Now, with Ho Chi Minh, which was the communist leader of the country, I'm against communism, but it doesn't mean that there's other factors that cause these conflicts than just communism itself. Now, there was a lot of opium in Vietnam, and there's a theory that they caused war over there with that. I think, yeah, yes, I think so, Danielle. Yes. So, with the opium, they wanted that, and also in Afghanistan, they wanted opium. So, it's the same or similar entity of the East India Trading Company. Not that it was completely bad, but it's a country now. Nothing wrong with it. I love the United States, but it could have attributes from the other company. Happy Face should have been cute to see, but who does them? There's artists that claim to do those, Danielle. Others are created by extraterrestrials. It depends. Yeah. So I do think there's a mass opium trade going on, and now Ho Chi Minh did quote the United States Constitution. A lot of these communist groups, the leaders of them were trying to claim allegiance with the United States, or that the revolution of breaking away from a different country, which I think that was admirable for them to do. Now we have disagreements about their economic opinion on with the socialism, communism, but I do think there are other factors that caused those wars. It wasn't just the situation with what they claimed. All right, continuing. In 1980, Terence Median, a meteorologist and physicist, proposed that the circles were caused by whirlwinds. And Danielle says, love Canada too. Yes, I love Canada. We are good, friendly people. Yeah, shout out to Canada, our neighbors, and also the West in general. The very, nice countries. So yes, a shout out to Canada. I have an ancestor from Nova Scotia. Oh, you saw a gray alien head. Scared. Circles that were caused by whirlwinds whose course was affected by southern England hills. As circles became more complex, Terence had to create interestingly complex theories, blaming an electrical magnetic hydromatic plasma vortex. The meteorologist theory became popular. It was even referenced in 1991 by physicist Stephen Hawking, who said that the corn circles are either hoaxes or formed by a vortex movement of air, and that may be caused by a UFO. Weather, in my opinion. The weather theory suffered a serious blow in 1991, but Hawking's points about hoaxes was supported by Rower and Corley. Stated that they had been responsible for making all those circles by the end of 1991. Median conceded that those circles that have complex designs were made by hoaxers, but I do believe that many are made by extraterrestrials too, or completely. And Danielle says, yep, that's east of me, Nova Scotia. Oh, yeah. My ancestor from Nova Scotia, he came to England during World War One, and he fought in World War One. My great-grandfather. I do think it's possible people may do them, but I do think that there may be a situation where there's some crop circles that are there, and they're trying to do it as a cover-up. I'm not talking about all of them, Oki, because if you're saying like some artists make something with the right equipment, what I mean is that I do think there are crop circles that are created by extraterrestrials, and there's a cover-up going on about the true origin of them. But I'm not denying that with the right technology, people can make art out of cornfields, crop circles that way. But I do think some are extraterrestrial too, at least. Could be both. But I do think there's a possibility that when they say that some were hoaxes, and some people took credit for them, like Anna and I were talking about, that it's possible that the saying that people did it and it's a hoax might be a cover-up because they don't want people to know the truth. That it might be aliens doing it. Oh, you're welcome, Danielle. So you think that the monoliths are created by humans too? I think, in my opinion, I don't know for certain, but I do think they're extraterrestrial. Possibly. But I'm not going to deny if it's humans doing it. Been freaked out by monoliths since 2001 Space Odyssey. Alright. Well, you've seen the advertising cornfields that way. Oh, okay. And we're talking about the mowing devil. And the mowing devil is very interesting because it was the farmer didn't want to pay his mower to mow his lawn or to mow his field. So he said the devil should just do it. And there was a fire that happened in his field. And it seems that an extraterrestrial may have done it. Yes, that is true. Monoliths in Vegas. Oh, Anna. Congratulations. Happy birthday. Oh, thank you, Dirt of LA. Hello to you, and thank you for dropping by and for the compliment. Shout out to you. Anna says, I just turned 62. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. To you, Anna. I hope that you have a good one. Alright, so those are some information about the crop circles, and we have... So those are some different theories about them. And I'll talk about the fairies, the fairy rings. And happy birthday to Regine. Happy birthday. I like making those funny voices when it's someone's birthday. Reminds me of the Smoking Scan drops that he did. And happy birthday to you, Regina, too. Alright. Monolith 2001 Space Odyssey movie was Pack Sigs painted black and brown up for a movie. Ah, scared. Dirt of LA says, if you haven't seen State Boys, Louisiana, has recorded footage of capture of some escapees from New Orleans. Oh, that is. Thank you for the update. Recorded footage of the capture of some of the escapees from New Orleans. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll check it out. A fairy ring, also known as a fairy circle, or elf ring, pixie ring, is a natural occurrence ring or arc of mushrooms. They are found mainly in forested areas, but also appear in grasslands or rangelands. Fairy rings are deductible by saurocarps, fungal spore pods, and rings are arcs, as well as the necrotic zone, dead grass. Or a ring of dark green grass. Fungus mycelium is present in the ring or arc underneath. The rings may grow to over 10 meters, 33 feet in diameter, and they become stable over time as fungus grows and seeks food underground. Fairy rings are subject of much folklore and myth and worldwide, particularly in Western Europe. They are alternately seen as hazardous or dangerous places linked with witches and the devil, a sign of good fortune. About 60 mushroom species can grow in a fairy ring. Pattern. The best known is the edible Scotch bonnet, commonly known as the fairy ring champion, champignon. One of the largest rings that are found is near Belfort in northeast France, formed by the infudiblicable Geotropa. It is thought to be about 300 meters in diameter and over 700 years old. On South Downs in southern England, Calcebe gambosa has formed huge furry rings that also appear to be several hundred years old. And this is kind of like an enchanted forest right here. So that's an example of a fairy ring, and it's associated with UFOs. Moki says Carmelio Anthony is seeking a court-appointed attorney claiming indulgence after raising 500K on GoFundMe. Oh, scared. I know. Cringe. Happy birthday in advance, Danielle. Alright, then you have these other fairy rings. Danielle says, okay, time for me to continue yesterday's trial, so I'm behind, and I'm the oldest 165 going on 66 in 4 days. Good night and have a nice chat. Okay, Danielle, have a good one. Regina says, Carmelio is going under the jailhouse. He'll never be free. These are fairy rings in the moss of Iceland. That's pretty cool. All right. So Anna said Alien at one time a few years ago said Scotch bonnet peppers were hottest in the world. All right. Those are very hot. Yep. The folklore of Britain and Ireland contain a wealth of fairy lore, including the idea from which fairy rings take the name of the phenomena result from dancing of fairies in 19th century Wales, where the rings are known as Cleich I Y Tylwyth Tig. Fairies were almost invariably described as dancing in a group when encountered. Maybe nightlife, but he might get an extended nap like Jeffrey Epstein. Ah, yeah, that's possible. Fairies were almost invariably described as dancing in a group when encountered, and in Scotland and Wales, in the late 20th century, stories about fairy rings were still common. Some Welshmen even claimed to have joined a fairy dance. Yeah, an extended unalive nap. I know what you mean. Said Camaro video wasn't good and can't see or really hard to see the incident. Oh, scared. So Scotland and Wales in 20th century stories about fairy rings were still common. Some Welshmen even claimed to have joined the fairy dance. The Victorian folklorists regarded fairies and witches as related based on part of the idea that both were believed to dance in the circles. These reveals are practically associated with the moonlight nights. The rings becoming visible to mortals only the following morning. Local variants add that the details in early 20th century Irish tradition says that fairies enjoy dancing around the hawthorn tree. That's a good supplement, by the way. So its fairy rings often center on one. One resident of Bacudir, Bacuhitter, Scotland, said that the fairies sit on the mushroom and use the dinner tables, and Welsh women claim that fairies use the mushrooms as paralos and umbrellas. Regina said, but they said that they do not see any gang up on the dude before he unalived them. Yeah, there you go. Maybe the story's not like what they're saying. And maybe it's hard to see. It could be a couple of things. Women who claimed that the fairies use the mushrooms as parasols and umbrellas. And they wrote in the Historia wrote that the brightness of fairy ring comes from the dancing fairies who harm it with their feet. But Puck, who refreshes the grass, a Devon legend, said that the black hen and chickens sometimes appear at dusk in a large fairy ring in the edge of Dartmoor. A Welsh Manx variant current in the 1960s removes dancing from the picture and claims that the fairy rings spring up over underground fairy rings in villages. These associations have become linked to specific sites. For example, the Pixies Church was rock formation in Dartmoor, surrounded by fairy rings and stone circle and tops. Cater Illis of northern Wales believed it to be a popular spot for the dances. Yeah, Regina, being on that jury would be tedious, considering the circumstances. All right. All right. And let's see. Yeah, there's a bunch of crop circles. Some examples. Oh, hello, Greg. Good to see you, buddy. Shout out to you, dude. We are talking about crop circles and trials. We're having a good time. It's always nice to see you, buddy. Anna says, Regina, I think the kid peed off Carmelo when he told him to leave his 10 area and may have said something more to Carmelo to cause him to be mad enough to stab him. So like Carmelo was like he felt his life was threatened or something like that. If that's really true or not, it's up for debate. Or like he pushed him, but we don't really know what exactly was said. As I said, I don't think that the yeah I understand when you wouldn't want to put the kid in jail. Now I don't think using the knife on the other guy and stabbing him to death was necessary. No, I think it was an overreaction. But like as I said, I do want to see as much information come out about it as possible. And we don't want anybody to go to jail like that are like young like that or be killed either. All right. So, and those are just some examples of crop circles. Yeah, and there's plenty of witnesses. Okay, that's good. So we'll know exactly what happened with it. All right. Let's see what we could read about the Carmelo case or whatever his name is. Yeah, Carmelo. Let's see what we could read about Carmelo. All right. Now we're gonna go right into this. Okay. Go here. Yeah, it's illegal to bring a knife on school grounds. Yes, Anna, I know. I know. All right, let's see what some information we could read about this. The 18-year-old suspect in the stabbing deletion of Frisco, Texas track star Austin Metcalf was indicted by a grand jury Tuesday for the first degree murder. For weeks, my team has been presenting evidence to the grand jury today I summarized that evidence, and I was the grand jury returned first degree murder indictment against Carmelio Anthony, which they did. Cullen County District Attorney Greg Willis said, quote, with the indictment, the case now moves formally into the court system. He said from his point forward, we'll continue doing our part fully and fairly to pursue justice. Under the law, the trial schedule will be set by the court. When the time comes, we'll be ready. Jet Metcalf, Austin's father, told Fox News Digital that he is happy to see legal process playing out, but that nothing will bring his son back. Quote, I am pleased that we are moving forward. He said with the first degree murder indictment, it goes into the court system. I fully believe that the justice will served for Austin Metcalf. I look forward to the forthcoming trial, but it will never bring my son back. In response to the indictment, Anthony's attorney, Mike Howard, posted a video statement on his law firm's website. Yes, that is true. He does have a twin. Today's indictment is expected and routine step in the legal process, he said, adding that there is an indictment in nearly every felony case. Howard noted that only in the trial that the full story can be heard and the impartial justice can be done. Quote, we expect that when the full story is heard, the prosecution will not be able to rule out the reasonable doubt that Carmelo Anthony may have acted in self-defense, he said. Anthony is accused of stabbing Metcalf to deletion at an April 2 track meet in Frisco where a dispute broke out inside Memorial High School tent. Anthony was a student at Centennial High School, also Frisco. Both were 17 at the time. The arrest reported that the incident said Anthony grabbed his bag, opened it, and reached inside and told Metcalf, touch me and see what happens. In the next moment, a witness told police that Anthony reached into his bag and the male took a knife out of the bag and stabbed Austin. The witness told the officer that Anthony deserted the scene following the stabbing and Metcalf was deleted in his twin brother's arms. Anthony allegedly told the responding school resource officer who cuffed him upon arrival at the scene that he was protecting himself. The officer also noted bloots, which is blood, on Anthony's left middle finger. One officer said, referring to Anthony as his alleged suspect, that Anthony made a spontaneous statement. According to the report, I'm not alleged I did it. So he owns it. He's like, yeah, this is me. That's what he's saying. After initially being held on $1 million bond, Anthony's bond was reduced to $2,500,000, and he was released to home confinement. A trial date has not been set. Anthony's family spokesperson did not immediately return a comment request. Right, right. And I think that, as I said, with the stabbing, I think it was an extreme measure. And also, the other guy shouldn't have pushed him either. But it doesn't mean it justifies what the other guy did by stabbing him. They'll claim excited utterance on Camelo. Oh, okay. Carmelo. Thank you. And what that is, excited utterance is a statement made by someone under the stress of excitement caused by a startling event. It's an exception to the hearsay rule, meaning it can be admitted to evidence in court even though it's not a statement made under oath during the trial. The key idea is the stress of movement makes the statement more reliable. The startling event, there's must be a shocking or surprising event that triggers a statement. Stress and excitement. The person making the statement must be under the influence of stress and excitement caused by the event. Relating to the event. The statement must be related to the startling event in itself. Timing the statement should be made relatively close in the time of the event while the person is still under the influence of the excitement. For example, someone yelling, "Look out," as a car crashes or shouting, "He stole my purse," immediately after being robbed would likely be considered an excited utterance. These statements, though potentially hearsay, are admissible in court because the stress of the situation is thought to make the statements more truthful than if they were made later with more reflection. Yeah, and I agree. That's what they're going to try to do. Okay. Okay. And see. Let's see what trial. Okay. All right. Cape Coral man is guilty of murder of the missing boyfriend. Jury finds Cape Coral man guilty of murder of missing man Barry Schaumbach. A Lee County jury has found Cape Coral man guilty in the murder of his missing boyfriend. The murder trial of Christopher Davis, 37, who was accused his boyfriend's disappearance, entered its fourth day Thursday, with the prosecutors calling more witnesses as they continue to present a case built on digital evidence, forensic analysts, and surveillance video. Annis said kids can't be normal kids because the kids never know if other kid has a weapon and can't trash talk other each other anymore. Wow, that's scared. Definitely. I agree. And it does suck, and it is sick. I think that people these days, certainly what you're talking about, are taking stuff too seriously now. They're not like how they used to be. Davis stood trial for the murder of Barry and Schaumbach, who was reported missing in July 2023 and has not been seen since. He was found guilty on all counts, including the second-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and 8 counts of fraud. Davis was sentenced to life in prison, along with 5 years of tampering with evidence and 5 years on each count of fraud. In early testimony, prosecutors showed the video of Davis reporting Schmalbach missing and later using his credit card to buy a safe identical to one later found in Schmalbach's condo. Witnesses this week described hearing loud noises from Davis' condo the night Schmalbach visited vanish, and the police later discovered Davis's fingerprints on several items tied to the investigation. Investigators also documented Davis with scratches and injuries and found packaging for the cleaning wipes and a trolley in the trash outside his condo. Jurors also heard the testimony from forensic experts who reviewed Davis' phone activity in the days following Schaumbach's disappearance, revealing searches for safes, travel lodges, and remote areas in Florida. Davis has claimed the injuries came from his cat and maintenance, and Schaumbach left voluntarily. Defense attorneys continued to challenge prosecutors' narrative, pointing out that the lack of body or confirmed cause of deletion, and argue that Davis has cooperated through the investigation. All right, so and he was found guilty. There was impact statements made, and that was pretty cool to see that today. And there's relatives and friends of the person in the chat that knew the victim, and we're very good to them, and I was thanking them for being there with us. All right, let's go to our boy Diddy. All right, here we go. Okay, so 5 hours ago, prosecution, this is about Diddy, prosecution has completed delivering its closing arguments. Here's what they said this afternoon. And at Law and Crime Network, Jesse Weber did, answering questions from the audience. And Anjanette Levy, she did it too later on in the day. And they both did a magnificent job along with the other Law and Crime team. And also the ones that were stationed at New York City to tell us updates right from there. So it was a great team earlier, because they're asking me what I'm watching at the Diddy trial, and they thought that it wasn't on, but it's like it's on, but the people are having it's like a sidebar they have. We call it a sidebar, where they discuss the case and they take questions from the audience. So yeah, it was really pretty cool today. I saw that way earlier today. Then I saw it more later. The prosecution has concluded its closing argument, with prosecutor Christy Slavic spending more than 4 hours today Delivering remarks on behalf of the government, Slavic outlined the 5 counts of Sean Diddy Combs faces, including racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And they dropped some charges against him, which has to do with arson and kidnapping, and they want to focus more on the RICO charges he faces. And he has Brian Steele, which I think is one of the greatest attorneys ever. And I would prefer him to lead the although I'm not defending Diddy, I'm just saying from a legal perspective. I would say that the defense should have Brian Steele lead the charge like he did with YSL, because he did excellent with Young Thug. He's a very charming personality, and now Young Thug was different in my opinion. Thug was innocent, and he was not a bad guy, and it was for a righteous cause. So this is a little bit of a different situation, but he still is a very, very good defense attorney with Brian Steele. Very good defense. And he probably admired what he did with YSL, and he wanted him to be on his team. And I respect, Brian Steele, and I think he should lead the defense, and he should be the one to do the closing arguments, not this guy no one knows about. But with him having Brian Steele on his side, his chances of getting found not guilty increase. Even no matter how guilty he is, it's just a opinion of mine about him. I just think that he does an excellent job, but we will see what happens. And juries can be unpredictable. You don't know what they can do. Scared. All right, so let's go with what the prosecution was closing with. Counts 3 and 5 to convict Combs of the 2 counts of transportation. To engage in prostitution, Slavic said that the jury must find that he knowingly transported an individual in interstate or foreign commerce, intending that for a person to engage in prostitution. She said Combs paid for individuals to travel for sexual encounters with Casey. Regina, like road rage, for instance, on steroids. It's like they're gonna, yeah. There was one time I was with my mom, and we were driving, and somebody was trying to get ahead of us, and they were blocking us from. They kept on getting in front of the vehicle. I'm thinking about. All right, Anna. Good night to you. Thank you for coming. All right, so Regina, I was thinking that they were going to do something to us, but I was glad that nothing happened. But yeah, people are crazy these days. You never know. Individuals to travel for sexual encounters with Casey and Ventura and Jane in several states and abroad, and outlined multiple examples to illustrate her point. Predicate act. Transportation for prostitution is also predicate act under the racketeering conspiracy charge. Slavic said that he added that there is a significant evidence former Chief of Staff Christina Koram knew that it was happening in hotel rooms, facilitated travel and escorts, and ensuring Combs received thousands of dollars in cash when he requested it during after hotel nights. Koram, Slavic said, and knew exactly what was happening. Forced labor, allegedly. Forced labor. Slavic noted that the forced labor is also an element of the racketeering conspiracy charge, telling that the jury they heard evidence of forced labor involving several witnesses. She said Combs forcing Ventura Jane into grueling days-long sexual encounters without sleeping qualifies as forced labor. Slavic also referenced that the testimony of Mia Combs' assistant, who said he sexually assaulted her while she worked for him, emphasizing that Mia's boss, Combs, had all power and control over her. And then with this situation, the they have to prove that it wasn't consensual and that they were forced to do it. That's something they have to prove. They have to prove a couple of different things. This is why the prosecution has been focusing on the RICO charges as well, because they get them for something. Because a former prosecutor said in the show earlier that if you can get a broad charge when you have RICO, you can get them for all kinds of things. There's all kinds of different things you get someone for with RICO. So that's why they like it so much, that they can get somebody for it. And RICO trials are quite long. Witnesses tampering and obstruction. Slavic said that Combs engaged in witness tampering and obstruction after Ventura's lawsuit was filed in November 2023. Knowing that the civil allegations could lead to criminal investigation, Combs turned to his inner circle to help neutralize those who could harm him the most, including Jane. Slavic said, remember, Combs was denied bail 3 times after his arrest, as prosecutors alleged he continued to attempt to obstruct the investigation. In conclusion, Slavic concluded her remarks by thanking the jury and summarizing the evidence presented over the past several weeks up until today. The defendant was able to get away with these crimes because of his money, his power, and influence. That stops now, Slavic said. It's time to hold him accountable. Combs' defense team will present their closing arguments on Friday. The government will then have an opportunity for rebuttal before a judge gives the jury instructions ahead of deliberations. Prosecution concludes closing arguments in Combs' trial. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic is finished with the closing arguments. The trial adjourned for the day, and the parties are leaving the courtroom. Defense attorney Mark Agnifilio will give defense's closing arguments Friday, 9 a.m. Prosecutor to jury, it's time to hold Combs accountable. Prosecutor Christy Slavic wrapped up her closing argument by thanking jurors for their time in the last 7 weeks by saying that they've seen lots of evidence was hard to hear or hard to see, and now it's all before you. Quote, you've heard how the defendant ran his criminal enterprise with total control and with the loyal assistance of his inner circle, his chief of staff, who was his right hand, and his security team, whose names changed over time. She said she listed some of the key witnesses who testified at trial and recounted all the messages, records, and images that the jury saw. Quote, all evidence paints a clear picture of how the defendant committed a crime after crime of 2 decades and how he didn't take no for an answer, and the evidence shows how he and his inner circle committed crimes and how they would go to cover them up, she said. Quote, up until today, the defendant was able to get away with these crimes because of his money and his power, his influence. That stops now, and Slavic said it's time to hold him accountable. Combs and security chief tried to pressure Mia to lie, prosecutor says. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic said Sean Diddy Combs attempted to convince Mia to lie or give false information to law enforcement in 2023 and 2024 are additional examples of witnesses tampering and obstruction. Combs had his former head of security, D. Rock, reach out to Mia after Casey Ventura lawsuit was public. It was the first time D. Rock and Mia had spoken in more than 2 years, and D. Rock suggested that Combs and Ventura fought like normal couple, and others who worked for Mia and witnesses' relationship dynamic felt the same. Combs and D. Rock were working together to neutralize Mia's threat. Slavic said records said that D. Rock and Combs would communicate about their reach outs to Mia in late 2023 and early 2024. As D. Rock reached out to Mia, he updated Combs on their conversations and sometimes sent copies to Mia's messages to Combs. D. Rock gave her false version of events and tried to convince Mia that everyone else accepted that story and then continued to reach out to eventually offer her money. Slavic said, at one point in February 2024, Combs called her 5 times in a row at 6 a.m., then texted her asking her to call him because he wanted her to jog his memory about some events, quote, as criminal investigation became more and more real, and defendant tried to repeatedly to reach out to Mia. Slavic said Mia testified she felt terrified and threatened by Combs' efforts to reach her. At that point in 2024, Mai was already talking with the federal investigators, Slavic said. Prosecutor says Combs tried to tamper with witnesses and obstruct justice after Ventura's lawsuit. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic said Sean Diddy Combs engaged in witnesses tampering and obscuring after Casey Ventura lawsuit was filed in 2023. Quote, for years, the defendant took great pains to keep his criminal conduct from being exposed, she said. But many of the crimes that we've been speaking about were made public when Casey filed her lawsuit. Combs knew the allegations in the civil lawsuit could lead to criminal investigations, so he turned to his inner circle to help him neutralize the people who could damage him the most, Slavic said. Paying people off with $100,000 in brown paper bag wasn't an option. He needed to stay under the radar, she said. The jury heard parts of the recordings of 2 calls between Combs and Jane that were recovered from Combs' former chief of staff, Christina Korem's phone. Slavic said that the calls occurred shortly after the lawsuit was settled, so only the reason the defendant is doing is reaching out to Jane in fear of the criminal investigation. Quote, the defendant tries to feed Jane a false narrative of the events in past 3 years, Slavic said, and when he says to her that he knows it isn't true, it's what he wants her to say and protect him. That witness tampering, that's obstruction. Slavic said the Combs tried to repeatedly to get Jane to say she was a willing participant in the hotel nights, but Jane wouldn't, and when she pushed back, Combs cut her off. Slavic pointed out that you can hear the scratching of Sharpie writing on paper in background. The recording She said Coram was present but couldn't speak, as that would reveal her presence to Jane, and that they were writing notes to each other. They were working together as a team, she said. Later in the call, Combs dangles a carrot by telling Jane that she would have to worry about anything as long as she is on his side, Slavic said. 2 days later, he instructed Karum to make sure that the rent was still being paid on time, and she said. Slavic said that Coram made sure it was done because she knew what a threat Jane could be. The defendant, she helped Combs cover his crime and record calls with Jane and fabricated evidence, Slavic said. Now, yeah, and that's some stuff from the defense's closing, and they're trying to paint a picture a certain way to get him convicted and trying to convince the jury that he is guilty. We have to be watching this carefully because it'll starting on Friday is when they're going to be doing their closing arguments. So that'll be very cool. HR department at Combs' company was a puppet for him, prosecutor says. Prosecutor Christy Slavic said Sean Diddy Combs, a former employee of Capricorn Clark, was also a victim of forced labor. She worked for Combs off and on from 2004 through 2012 in different jobs, and during frequent threats to herself and her job, he used the force against her. Oh, hello, Todd. It's good to see you, buddy. We are talking about the Diddy trial at the moment. Talked about some other trials before, and we talked about some stuff with crop circles. And Todd, I hope that you're having a good time and you're continuing to have a good time in Florida. Hope your day's been going well. On Friday, the Diddy's defense will do closing. When Clark tailed up $80,000 in overtime pay that she was owed, Combs ripped up the paper and never paid her, Slavic said. Human Resources didn't do anything about it, she added. The defense may argue that Clark was not forced to work because she continued to come back to Combs for jobs. It is weird. That is true. And Brian Steele is defending Combs. Yeah, definitely a weird trial. Combs ripped up paper and never paid her, Slavic said, and Human Resources didn't do anything about it, she added. The defense may argue that Clark was not forced to work because she continued to come back to Combs for a job years after 2012. But that doesn't erase the previous forced labor, as Slavic said. Clark went back to him for jobs because he made sure that she could get... Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Todd. I'm sure that the heat is something that it's a little bit hotter down here than it is where you come from up north. Couldn't get a job in the industry unless it was for him, Slavic said. Combs told her she would never work again and made sure it was true. Combs forced a former assistant into the 6 acts and abuse, prosecutor says. Assaultant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic said, my Sean Diddy Combs' former assistant is also a victim of forced labor. The defendant treated me up differently than many of the other personal assistants. He demanded more and he abused her. Mia was also required to provide sexual service to the defendant. Slavic said he sexually assaulted Mia when Casey and his other girlfriends were not around. You're getting used to the heat. Oh. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. I was out there for a little bit today. I sometimes go out in the sun and walk around for like an hour or two. Yeah. Scared. She listed several sexual assaults that Mia testified about, included a time he forced her to perform oral sex on him. As Mia's boss, Combs had all power and control over her, and Slavic said so even though she never wanted to have sex with him, he knew that she couldn't say no and that she wouldn't say no. These sexual assaults were the most traumatic things that ever happened to her, much so that she planned to be deleted when that secret, Slavic said. Combs was also violent with Mia when she didn't do exactly what he wanted, including by throwing things at her and slamming her arm into a door, Slavic said. She also witnessed Combs being violent with Casey Ventura. Shout out to Mary Toodles. Mia saw and experienced extreme violence at her boss's hand. Slavic said it's no wonder she was always worried about her physical safety if she was to tell him no. After Combs was violent, he would enlist HR or other employees to punish Mia, and Slavic said he would often threaten her job, which was her entire world at the time. In my opinion, Brian Steele should lead his defense, and not the other guy that no one knows about. And the state has dropped some charges against Diddy in jury instructions, and I think they want to focus a lot more on RICO and the prostitution charges and things like that. They want to get him for something, and the RICO is easier for prosecution. At the same time, it could show weakness on the prosecution side by dropping charges on Diddy. And we don't know. A jury could be unpredictable, as I said. You don't know. Maybe he'll be found innocent, but we'll see what happens. Mia felt that she couldn't go to law enforcement because she had seen Combs was above the police, Slavic said. Slavic addressed some of the loving messages and posts Mia wrote to and Combs, saying that Mia testified that sometimes the defendant treated her like his best friend and other times treated her like she was worthless. The high highs and low lows that Mia described were a cycle of abuse that created a trauma bond. Slavic said in the moments, Mia couldn't see it for what it was. This was where Combs forced Ventura and Jane into days-long sexual acts, prosecutors say. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic is now addressing forced labor as an element of racketeering conspiracy charge. The prosecutors said that the jury heard evidence of forced labor as Casey Ventura, Jane Mia, and Capricorn Clark Sean Diddy Combs forcing Ventura and Jane into grueling days of long sexual encounters without sleep qualifies as forced labor, Slavic says. Combs forced them both to have sex with multiple men multiple times over multiple days. The women testified that they got sores and they got very sick. They got infections, Slavic said. Both women testified they regularly got urinary tract infections from freak-offs. And it got to point where antibiotics were ineffective. This is not the Casey's pleasure that this work, and Slavic said. Brian Still's not leading the defense. But he is in the defense, but not leading it. Jane and Casey both testified that they would sometimes insure a freak-off or hotel night while they still had a UTI from previous sexual encounter. When they told Combs they were tired of sick, he told them to keep going and finishing strong. Scared. Yeah. And the state dropped a couple of charges against him, and we'll see what that does. And the defense will do their closing on Friday. Yes, tomorrow, correct. Combs' ex-chief staff knowingly arranged Wild King's Night cash and escorts, jury told. Slavic said there is significant evidence that Christina Coram, Sean Diddy Combs' former chief of staff, knew what was happening in the hotel rooms when she helped plan Wild King Nights. Her term from the hotel room, Coram facilitated travel from escorts and ensure Combs received thousands of dollars in cash when he requested it during and after hotel nights. At times it seemed like KK was disapproving, but that doesn't matter. She knew exactly what was happening, Slavic said, and made sure that the defense had everything he needed. The jury listened to audio messages of Combs sent to Christina Coram. I want them to hunt for the sickest, most unapologetic Wild King Sioux room in Vegas. Coram responded, is Paul coming to Vegas too? And Combs frequently hired Paul for hotel nights with Jane. Right, some more things the prosecutors were saying during their closing. Let's see what we're doing here. All right. Control. Combs' effort to control Ventura defined their decade-long relationship. Slavic said he controlled her career and her appearance and how she spent her time. Slavic added that Combs paid for her car, phone, apartment, and many other things, making her dependent on him. Slavic said that when Ventura finally ended the relationship with Combs in 2018, Combs demanded control until the very end and recounted Ventura's testimony about how he raped her at the time. Abuse. Part of his control was also abusing Ventura. The defense doesn't deny the abuse, and they just want to call it domestic violence, and she said, adding that it's important for the jury to understand that the freak-offs were happening as the violence continued throughout their long-term relationship. Slavic went on to remind the jury about several instances of abuse, and Ventura and others testified about. Oh, hello, Mary Toodles. Good to see you. Welcome. And secretly guard an enterprise and enable the assistant defendant abuse, she added. Freak-offs. Slavic recalled Ventura's testimony about performing hours-long freak-offs for Combs, despite having at times urinary tract infections, would continue to do them because she wanted to make Combs happy. And Slavic also told the jury that they didn't have to find every freak-off was an instance of sexual trafficking, saying, quote, "This is not or none of the situation because there were many freak-offs Ventura participated due to Combs' force, threats of coercion." She added that Combs used the readings of the freak-offs as collateral to coerce Ventura into continuing to perform. Sex trafficking of Ventura. Slavic reminded that the jury about Danielle Phillips' testimony, where he described witnessing violence between Combs and Ventura during a freak-off. Slavic said the instance that Combs was demanding that Casey had sex with a paid escort, that's sex trafficking. Right. And hello, Mary Toodles. It is great to see you, and welcome to chat. Climate of fear. Ventura didn't see leaving the relationship as an option because she'd experienced how violent Combs could be, said Slavic, who added, the evidence shown how little agency and how little control Ventura had. Combs created a climate of fear that can't be isolated to one more time, Slavic said. Casey did not have freedom to make voluntary adult chronic choices. And Mary says to Regina, I agree, people are crazy, will shoot for no reason. You know, a lot of times people these days, they're in their emotions and they're acting, nutty, and they're, you can tell somebody and they'll just go off and start shooting or doing something nutty like that. I totally agree. Definitely. Combs arranged and paid for male escorts to travel for hotel nights with Jane, prosecutor says. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic detailed several occasions when Sean Diddy Combs paid for male escorts to travel for hotel nights with Jane, saying that their travel was often arranged by Combs' travel agent. And Regina says, hey, Mary Toodles, love the name. Oh, that's very sweet of you. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic detailed several occasions when Sean Diddy Combs paid for male escorts to travel for hotel nights with Jane, and saying that their travel was often arranged by Combs' travel agent. The entertainer Sly lived in Atlanta and participated in the hotel nights in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York, Slavic said. The entertainer Paul, who frequently joined Combs and Jane for hotel nights, traveled for Turks and Caicos for a hotel night. In March 2023, Slavic said that Combs texted Paul after and asking he would like to handle payment. According to Slavic, he orchestrated the paid Paul travel and Turks for the purpose of hotel night, she said. On another occasion, Combs texted the owner of the escort service Cowboys for Angels about a male entertainer traveling from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. Slavic said Combs sent money to Jane, who then forwarded the escort service and hotel booked during that time, charged roughly $4,000 in fees for damaged furniture including the staff, and found bodily fluid stains on the floor, she said. So we have all these different factors, and then what the state is trying to prove is that Diddy was doing these things with people and forced them into human trafficking, and the defense is saying that it was consensual, and like, what would the motive be for them to try to turn on him? Did they want money or fame or get revenge on him? Like, what was the motive behind why they're doing it? But also at the same time, there's videos of Casey being abused, and at this, it could be, obviously he did things that were very horrid. But what the state's going to have to try to do is prove that it was not consensual, and also another reason why they have focused a lot on the RICO charges, and we'll see how it goes. So just seeing it from like both sides, and I think that the defense will see how they do their closing. And Monday and Tuesday is likely when the jury will start deliberating, and we'll see if he's guilty or innocent. And I do think it should have been televised. It shouldn't have been sequestered in the sense that it was sequestered, where the state of New York doesn't allow trials to be public. And the other thing with the federal cases are sequestered. They're not public, so you can't watch a public trial. You just have to watch like the outside the courtroom, the courthouse. Prosecutors begin going over the transportation for the prostitution charges against Combs. Prosecutor Christy Slavic now turning to counts 3 and 5 against Sean Diddy Combs. These are 2 counts of interstate transportation for prostitution in connection to freak-offs and hotel nights with Casey Ventura and Jane. To convict Combs of these counts, the jury must find Combs knowingly transported a person in interstate and foreign commerce, and that he intended that the person would engage in an act of prostitution. Combs paid for male escorts to travel for sexual encounters with Ventura and Jane, and often personally organized in logistics with escorts, and Slavic said. Slavic reminded the jury that Combs paid for escorts to fly to New York City, Miami, Los Angeles, and Ibiza for freak-offs, which Casey Ventura did during their relationship. We will do those in the future, Mary. Thank you for the suggestion. The prosecutors encouraged the jury to look at the records if they want more examples of when Combs violated the law, but show the panel specific records that documented Combs organized and paid and named Julius to fly to New York City in August 2009 for freak-off with Ventura. But shout the bubbles. Shout the bubbles. Julius is the same escort who was the freak-off the day the assaulted on Intercontinental in 2016. Prosecutor says the staff and security enabled the sex trafficking. So now they're saying that the assistant U.S. attorney turned to the sex trafficking retaliation of the racketeering charge. Just like when everything else, Sean Diddy Combs did not do it alone, and she said he needed help getting drugs for freak-offs, getting cash to pay the escorts, and he needed to help keeping Casey and Jane in line for those things. He again turned to his most loyal lieutenants. Christina Coram, Combs' form, the chief of staff, helped set up a hotel rooms and get strange men access to the rooms, and Slavic said when Jonathan Priez, one of Combs' assistants, saw the video of Jane having with the escort, Coram integrated him about thank you, Mary Toodles, about it. KK knew that what was happening in those videos was wrong, but she did damage to control. One of Combs' longest security guards, D. Rock, took away Ventura's belongings, brought to her back to Combs when she ran away, and tended to her injuries, Slavic said. Quote, it would be absurd to think that he didn't know what Casey and the defendant were doing for days at a time and over again, she said. Of course he knew. Slavic said it defied logic to think that Combs' most trusted lieutenants were totally in the dark. They knew what he was doing and that he helped him do it. Ventura forced into freak-offs even after saying no, prosecutor said. Now, they have to prove all of this, that it happened. Because you could say there's like hearsay, for instance, a defense can argue. That's why video and stuff is important to have. And health, Mary Toodles, thank you for your donation. And also, I think that with Ventura, they have to prove all of that, but I do believe it happened, but they have to also prove it. Okay. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic said even when Casey Ventura did tell Sean Diddy Combs she didn't want to do it, a freak-off, they still would. She returned to the testimony about Ventura's 29th birthday. Despite saying no, despite not wanting to do it, Casey left her own birthday party with the defendant for a freak-off, Slavic said. If the defendant wanted a freak-off, it was going to happen, and she said, adding that Combs didn't take no for an answer. It all comes down to this. What choice did Casey have in the end? Slavic said. Viewed through the entire context of their relationship, Casey did not have the freedom to make a voluntary adult choice. Okay, the prosecutor is also claiming that Combs used drugs to control Ventura and compelled the freak-offs. Drugs were also part of Sean Diddy Combs' cohesive scheme to control Casey Ventura and continue to compel her perform in the freak-offs. For years, allegedly. Ventura testified that drugs were dissociative and numbing. And she couldn't imagine having a freak-off without them. Scared. Assistant U.S. Attorney also knocked the defense's suggestion that Ventura explicit messages to Combs that sometimes referenced the freak-offs meant that she wanted to do them. Slavic said it's normal for a woman like Ventura to send explicit messages to her boyfriend that she testified she loved, but Ventura also knew what to say to keep Combs happy, which included sexual texting about freak-offs. She knew that when he was happy, she was safe, Slavic said. The jury saw the text Combs sent to Ventura, you're supposed to be seducing me all day. Scared. getting close to the end here. Okay. Ventura stayed with Combs out of fear and not choice, prosecutor says. Though the defense has said Casey Ventura made an adult choice to stay in a decade-long relationship with Sean Diddy Combs, Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic argued that Ventura didn't see no as an option because she'd experienced how violent he could be. Slavic said that the evidence showed how little agency and how little control Ventura had. The defendant created a climate of fear that can't be isolated to one moment, Slavic said, and Ventura testified didn't really know what would be or what would not turn into. Allegedly, Combs was training Ventura to obey him, and Combs threatened to Ventura with freak-off tapes if the jury told. Freak-off tapes the jury told. The prosecutor recounted another incident when Sean Diddy Combs and Casey Ventura were in France for the Cannes Film Festival. Combs accused her of stealing his drugs, so he kicked her off. All right, Regina, have a good night, and we're not going to be much longer anyway. And good night to you. Thank you for coming to the stream. I really appreciate you. Combs accused her of stealing his drugs, so he kicked her off the boat, and they were staying out without... Okay, Regina, understood. You're very welcome, and I look forward to that. Okay, thank you. Combs accused her of stealing his drugs, so he kicked her off the boat and were staying on without her passport. Any of her belongings were they later went to a movie premiere together. Combs was squeezing her beaded dress into her legs as tightly as he could, Slavic said. On the flight back to New York, Ventura tried to sit separately from Combs, but he followed her, Slavic said. He spent the entire flight holding Casey captive and making her watch videos that he had recorded of freak-offs and threatening to release them. When the plane landed, Combs demanded that the freak-off said Casey compiled she didn't believe that she had a choice, Slavic said, and he had just threatened her about blackmail and tapes in some of the most humiliating moments of her life. Slavic said this is another example of coercion which can include reputation harm and not physical harm. Alright, and the jury was shown footage of Combs in the hotel beating Casey, being a jackass. Ventura sent Combs a message after the 2016 assault. When you get effed up the wrong way, you always want to show me that you have the power and you could knock me around. I'm not a ragdoll, I'm someone's child, Ventura wrote. And they're saying that Stockholm Syndrome, or the trauma bond, promoted Ventura to go back to Combs, prosecutor said. Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic said that Casey Ventura watched Sean Diddy Combs injure her friends on more than one occasion. Combs injured celebrity-style Denote Nash, a friend of Ventura's, when he tried to step in. Combs attacked Ventura in 2015 in her apartment when she packed for a music festival. Slavic acknowledged that Brianna Bongalon, another friend of Ventura, may have gotten the date wrong in her allegations against Combs, but prosecutors said that Combs He is a creeper. Must have dangled Bogaloon off a balcony. Former Combs chief staff Christina Coram took a screenshot in September 2016 of a conversation she had with Ventura about the incident. Ventura also paid Kerry Morgan money from Combs after Combs attacked Morgan in 2018, an incident that ended Morgan and Ventura's long-time friendship. The defense has asked during this trial why, if the violence was so bad, why is Casey, why if Casey was unhappy, why she didn't leave, but you know why, Slavic said. Slavic said when Ventura tried to leave, either Combs or someone in the inner circle would go after her being in the back. She recounted instances when members of his security team or Coram would keep an eye on Ventura on his behalf. Combs' security guard, D-Rock, an enterprise-enabled assistant and defendant abuse, she said. Slavic said Ventura finally ended the relationship with Combs in 2018, but Combs demanded control over the very end. She recounted Ventura's testimony about Combs rapping her in 2018, and after dinner together, quote, the defendant essentially admitted that the text message that Slavic said that she read part of the message Combs had sent Ventura followed that day, which said in part, I know I look bad to you. I can tell I didn't turn you on yesterday. That is a way of saying I know I graped you, Slavic said, and he's downplaying, but he also knows that what he did was wrong. Slavic said Ventura went back to Combs even after the rapper traumatized bond, the traumatic bond. All right, so that is it for tonight. All right, so tomorrow the defense is going to do their closing, and we'll see how it all goes. All right, so everybody, thank you for tuning in. Have a very great evening, and peace. See you.